The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest live episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 322, and getting ever closer to our milestone 5-year anniversary celebrations. Today for a Monday evening, I've got one of the most exciting young UK talents on the scene right now. Just returned from 3 months training over in the States with Dr. Tom Prichard. We're going to get into all of that. Jordan Sparks. Jordan, great to have you on the show. How you doing?
Well, John, thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Awesome. Yes. Always love doing these live interviews, and we got so much to get into. We're really going to kind of touch on it and take a deep dive into your recent tour of Tennessee and training over there with JPWA, Dr. Tom, and all that good stuff. But we are live, of course. So for anybody watching at home, if you want to get in touch with the show, you want to get in touch with Jordan Sparks, send in any questions, you can do. As I always say, send them through to us using your chosen device. They'll ping through to us, and we'll do our very best during the course of the next hour and 15, hour and a half, however long we go, to answer all of your questions live on Wrestling with Jordan. Before we take a deep dive and start asking questions to Jordan, just a quick reminder of some of my recent guests. And hopefully it will entice you to hit the like button and the subscribe button from wherever you're watching us. But of course, Nathan Angel joined me a couple of months ago on Wrestling with Johners, an exceptionally talented young star. I think he's 19 years old, absolutely ridiculous. And I'm sure he will make his name will certainly turn up in conversation during the course of this interview. Michael Oku joined me about a month ago on episode 315, the current Rev Pro British Undisputed Heavyweight Champion. And of course, a couple of weeks ago, I had Dave Sharp, the former owner, trainer, promoter of 4FW, and he'll be launching British Kingdom Professional Wrestling in just over a week's time. I think their debut show on the 7th of October, and Dave came onto the podcast a couple of weeks ago to tell us all about that. And like I say, they've got a handful of shows on sale already, but check out that interview. Of course, my most recent episode of the Legends Masterclass featuring Mel Sanders, episode 6 part 1 and episode 6 part 2 are out. Please go and check that out. Previous guests have included Marty Jones, Adrian Street, Tony St. Clair, and so many more. And last week, my most recent live guest was Kamikaze. He's been training with Joel Redman over at All-Star Wrestling South, but traveling the UK, doing a bit of a mini UK tour of his own before he heads back to Canada next month. But today, it's all about this guy there. Look at that. Look at the look at the physique. The model professional wrestler. But Jordan, you've just come back literally days ago from 3 months over in Tennessee, and you were training with these guys here, weren't you? The Jacobs Prichard Wrestling Academy. You flew out there at the end of June and you came back just last week. But how are you kind of adapting back to British life then, Jordan, now that you're out there for 3 months, quite a long time, and now you're back on UK soil? It must seem pretty strange.
It's weird. It's weird. The well, just the jet lag in itself when you come back over it.
It's a killer, isn't it?
Yeah, awful. Just awful. Like I think I slept for about 12 hours when I came back. But yeah, it's weird, you know, the 5-hour difference and that sort of stuff. But I don't know which way, I don't know which way. I think I prefer, the US times compared to the UK times. I don't know why, it just feels different. It feels different being back over here.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, we mentioned just briefly JPWA training over there with Dr. Tom Prichard. How did you first get the opportunity to go out there and to have this incredible opportunity, this kind of chance of a lifetime to train with world-renowned, one of the very best trainers in the history of pro wrestling, let's be honest, train some of the biggest names in North American pro wrestling. How did that opportunity first arise to you?
Well, it was just something that I'd wanted to do for a while, ever since I started wrestling. Like, I'd say about probably a year or so into training, I kind of thought to myself, America's like just such a great leap. And obviously, because of the amount of wrestling that you watch when you're younger, all of it being WWE, you know, WCW, whatever you want to call it, like that's the sort of style of wrestling you at least want to try, you know, for 3 months or so. Like I love British wrestling. I've grown to love it ever since I've been training, more or less. But the actual American style is something that you'll always want to go out to try. So as soon as I found out, you know, how to apply, that I'm going to need to sort out my own flights, you know, all that sort of stuff, the accommodation. I had to make sure that after that year of training, that I wanted to make sure that I had everything that I needed to get over there for 12 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring up a picture here. There's yourself, Ruby, Manitoba, Farmstrong, of course, Toby St. John, and Echo. But with Dr. Tom, the great man himself. Yeah, and what was it about that style of trainer, that style of training school that really resonated with you in particular? You could have gone to any training school around the world, or in the UK. We've got some of the very best trainers in the UK here alone. But what resonated with you in particular about JPWA?
Can I just say, I'm looking at that picture there of me. I'm looking at me now, and God, the tan. The tan's gone. It's only been what, a week or so since I've been back. And the tan
yeah, that's what UK weather would do to you. Sorry about that.
I got to get back in bed. It's terrible. But yeah, so there was a lot of schools that I was looking into when I was thinking of where to go to, and you know, there were a couple, like one which was Tenton was like Flatbacks, which is like Breeze, Sean Spears. That was one that I was thinking of for a while. And then I don't know, it was just, again, I just grew more into the style of wrestling, like you know, the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express, and that was a sort of style that obviously resonated with the JPWA because it's Dr. Tom Prichard. You know, he's a doctor of He's honestly, he's one of the best, and it's a shame that, you know, I say it's a shame he had success, but he's getting the recognition that he deserves now, the trainer, especially just because. I don't know, just in 3 months, I learned so much about everything in wrestling just from being on Dr. Tom Prichard.
Yeah, and full transparency, I am old enough to remember him kind of wrestling back in the early 90s, and when he was first joined WWE as WWF back in the days, one half of the with Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. I can't remember what they were called now. It was on the tip of my tongue, but fantastic.
Body donners. That's what I thought you were going to say. Which
the body donners. Yeah, that was something different entirely, wasn't it? Yeah, I think even Dr. Tom would regret that hairstyle for sure. Big fan of his from the early 90s. And you obviously flew out there at the end of June, moved into your accommodation. Quick picture there. But how soon was it that you were kind of in the ring training? Did you have any time to kind of relax, kind of scope out you kind of locality, or was it straight in the gym and straight in the ring?
I mean, it wasn't straight in the gym for me. I had a bad time with flying. I don't know what it was, but while we were traveling, it was an issue with, like, I don't know, the flights and everything like that. I was already feeling, you know, not too good. You know, couldn't really sleep that well. But then on the drive there, we're like, oh, let's go and get some food. So we stopped some food, and I couldn't stomach anything. I don't know why. So I was like, oh, I'll just have water. I'm probably just dehydrated. You know, I'll sleep in the car. It's all good. We had to stop, I think, at least 3 or 4 times along the way. I couldn't stop just being sick on the side of the road. Thank God that, you know, you can pull over on the side of the road, because I was awful on the way there. So I'm thankful that we did have a couple of days just to rest up and get over the jet lag and, you know, get ready for the sessions.
Was the sickness from the plane or from the driving?
I don't know, because, you know, Tobes, he ate the same stuff that I did on the plane, so it couldn't have been the food. I think it was just like extreme fatigue or something. I don't know why. I mean, I haven't really flown that often anyways, and even if it's only short courses, so that's probably the longest time that I've flown somewhere. So, you know, that probably has something to do with it, you know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The heavenly bodies. That's it. Dr.
That's it.
Tom and Gigolo Jimmy Delray, the heavenly bodies. There we go. That's live podcasting for you folks. Kind of you forget facts straight away, but genuinely one of my favorite teams. And tell us a little bit about your schedule and your routine. So when you did start training with Dr. Tom at JPWA, what was your routine like? Really kind of your sessions, like all day sessions? Tell us a little bit about those.
So I mean, like the breakdown of the day was usually just, you know, get up, breakfast, go to the gym, come back, eat lunch, and then usually we would have to start to think about making a move around like 4 or 5 ish, and then it was usually Monday to Friday we'd have training, and it'd be 6 till 10, and then the Wednesday that was actually just I think it was just a 6 till 9. I think that was a promo day essentially. So Wednesday was the promo day, and then all the other days was 4 hours of just, you know, in-ring cardio,
Yeah.
you know, the basics, top to bottom, building the foundation, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And with the drills and some of the sessions, anything kind of unique to yourself? And you've obviously trained with a lot of trainers in the UK. You've done a lot of routines, a lot of cardio, a lot of grinds in your training sessions. But did he get you doing anything that you maybe hadn't done before?
I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything that we just hadn't done flat out, but in the order that he was doing them in, that's something that we just, you know, hadn't done. I mean, for example, you got in the UK, the rings, you know, they've got ropes, not cables. That was a huge
Right.
difference, you know. So hitting those was way worse than hitting ropes. Like your back hurts a lot after
A
hitting
lot
those.
harder, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah. There's not as much slack or not as much give on the cables. We did just a lot of rope running. I'll be honest. That was the, you know, like I thought, you know, the in-ring cardio in the UK, that's like a big thing. It's a big deal. It's conditioning and intensity. But over there, it's just you got to be able to pace yourself and go at the same time. You got to be able to know when to switch it on and off. And you know, there was a couple drills which were dreaded, especially because you know that they're coming, but there's nothing you can do about it. There's like the 5-5-5, he called it, which is, so you start off with just setting them off. You sleep leap 5 times. You know, it's pretty bad. Got to do the same. Hit the ropes 5 times. Then you go up and over 5 times. The other person switches up and over 5 times. So by that point, you're already spent. And then you got to get into the pins, the roll ups, making sure you can do the, you know, the all the fundamentals. But even by then, you do that, and then you got to go around again. So you'd have to do it at least twice. So once with one person, once with the other person. It's a lot of conditioning, especially in. I'm trying to think what sort of heat it was out there. It was 30 degrees Celsius at least.
Oh, you're
In
talking the height of the summer over in Tennessee, aren't you? Really, and that's at least 30 degrees.
at least.
Crikey, yeah, that's incredible. Well, were you guys the only international talent that were training with Dr. Tom at the time?
So no, there was another person. He was a French guy called Andrew. He came over, and he had been training previously. I think other than that, I think it was just us, and then there was I believe there was a Puerto Rican as well, but he had already been in Florida and he'd already been traveling by that point. So,
Yeah,
and then other than that, it was just a mixture of people from either around the area or just in America.
I'm curious to know what's Dr. Tom like? I mean, firstly, what's he like as a coach? Is he a bit of a drill sergeant, or what's his kind of style as a coach?
I mean, he always says in the grand scheme of things, he's a pussycat. So he
Right.
doesn't, you know, believe that he's that intimidating. I didn't get the impression that he was too intimidating. I thought he was great. I thought he was hilarious. He likes jokes, but jokes aren't really my forte. I'll wait until Ruby comes on. I know he's coming up soon, so I'll leave that to her. But yeah, I think he's great. He's not so much of a drill sergeant. You know, he very much believes in being able to pace yourself. He believes in making sure that you obviously put 100% in, but knowing when to pace yourself and slow down, just to make sure that, you know, you can find your pace and find your bearings is the main thing.
Yeah. And did you ever get much of a chance to get to know the real Dr. Tom when the sessions have ended? Did you all go out for a bite to eat or a drink, or have a chance to kind of talk outside of the training academy? Did you get a chance to learn about the real man behind the character?
I mean, I feel like a part of the 12 weeks of training is listening to Dr. Tom, listening to what he's got to say. That's like just that knowledge that you can't fabricate or make up. That's the sort of stuff which I was there for. So even if it was just like, let's say it's a training session of 4 hours, and we've got to Friday and we're spent and we've done about 2.5 hours of drills already, and we're just talk on the outside about stuff that we'd like to know about, or at the time what he was looking for in a wrestler when he was the head trainer there at one time. It's stuff like that which you can't really put a price on, because just how much he knows and the people he knows and what he's done. So you can't really not just listen to him for an hour. You're going to learn something every session of that.
Absolutely. And not only were you out there to sit under the learning tree of Dr. Tom at JPWA, but yourself and Toby, Ruby and Echo, you were on a bit of a mini tour as well, weren't you? And you were performing across Tennessee and the wider area. So that sounds pretty tough. Was that always the intention, to kind of perform while you're out there as well as training?
So the priority number one, in my opinion, was always to make sure that we just make as many training sessions as possible, to hit every single training session, because that's what we're out there for. That's the priority, first and foremost. But then the opportunity started to arise where people were taking notice, and they did want to start using us, and we did start showing up to shows. And obviously it was from there, you make connections, so on and so forth. So we kind of just said, okay, well, if there is ever a chance that we have to miss training, it's going to be because of shows, or it's going to be because of booking. So it was kind of like training was first, but if there is shows, then so be it. We're going to look to make those connections, because you never know, we might want to come back out here again, which we do.
Yeah, it's all invaluable experience, isn't it? And of course, your regular tag team partner with Toby St. John, of course. There you are. That is an awesome photo, by the way. Really, really cool. And this one here, I think that's actually a picture of the two of you stateside. And you did have your kind of North American debut, didn't you? I think it was July the 23rd for a company called SSW. That's pretty cool. Like I say, I don't think you probably had in the back of your mind that you might perform and have matches while you're over in the States, but were there maybe some butterflies or a little bit of anxiousness, kind of an opportunity, you having to go out there and prove yourself in front of a new market, a new set of fans for a new promotion? How was that debut show on July the 23rd?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. There were, I always feel like if you're not nervous in some respect, then you're not really feeling it, or it's or you're lying to yourself, because you have to be nervous, because it's a natural reaction for me. I always feel nervous because I always feel like I always want to make sure I perform the best of my ability. That's always the number one thing I think of. And I mean, working for Southern States Wrestling, it was it's a big deal, because it's a big like stepping stone, because you've come all the way out here again for training, and to learn. But more importantly, God, look at that pro picture as well. I don't like that anymore. But you come all the way out here to learn, and then you realize that you actually have a chance to make more of it. And the opportunities that we all go out here, I can't thank all the companies enough, really. I didn't expect to get the amount of work that we did when we were over there, but the fact that we did, it's incredible to me. I can't believe it.
I'm just going to read out a bit of a list here of certainly within the first 2 or 3, well, certainly the first couple of months, my apologies, of you working out there. Joe Kazana Promotions, and I think Joe was also formerly a graduate of JPWA, KFW and their Game Over show, Innovate Wrestling. You had a big 6-man tag in Coalfield, Tennessee for JCP again, Imperial Pro Wrestling. Just going to bring up some pictures here of some of your time out there. And there we go for JCP, Joe Casano Promotions. There you are with Toby, the Blockbusters, and some snapshots of your time out there. And say some great halls, some great venues, some wonderful memories, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that high, you know, I'm
that is pretty incredible. I mean, you're a big dude, but that guy's got you right up there. That's possibly Toby, actually.
That's Toby. Yeah, I told you, I'm not going to be getting that high.
He's got a good leap on him, and a few others. What are some of your kind of memories of some of them first? That's probably your first 4 or 5 shows there. Some good memories?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just that 6-man alone that you brought up, you know, that was probably the biggest crowd at that point that we had wrestled in front of. I believe that was at Coalfield, so that was about 800 people. And you know, you don't really know what that number looks like until you're looking at it. You know, I had it envisioned in my head, but then you go out there and it's, you know, I'm thinking, oh wow, okay, like you know, it's now the nerves start setting in. But just from that picture where I'm giving the bad body drop, I mean, the reaction that I got just based off of that, just because they hate, that's AJ Kazana, they hate AJ, and you know, just the reaction of something like that, you know, in today's wrestling, the sport, you know, it gets kind of taken for granted, and you know, the reaction I got for that alone was enough for me to say, okay, you know, I love wrestling here, I want to wrestle here more.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And the next match I want to talk about is this one here. So the Blockbusters versus George C.W. Anderson. Let's be honest, 2 legends of the North American scene, been around for decades. And there you were, you had the opportunity to go up against these 2 legends, the Blockbusters versus George South and C.W. Anderson. Yeah, I did say before we went live, I weren't going to bring up any embarrassing pictures, but there is that one there, and I do apologize. But you spoke about the big crowds in that one at Coalfield, 800 people. This might about the same size, if not possibly bigger, but a hell of an occasion, and getting the opportunity to wrestle 2 legit kind of legends of the North American scene.
Oh, just absolutely. I mean, you know, we got told that's 1,000 people, so that was obviously a huge
that's a big deal.
That, you know, I'm probably gonna get close to it for a long time. So I mean, me myself, I personally, you know, I really think that match was just something special in that match. I mean, George South and C.W. Anderson, I mean, just 2 bona fide legends. And I remember Toby's reaction when he told me, because obviously, you know, we're living together at that point in the Banana House. He comes in, he's like, guess who we're announced against? And I'm like, and he's like, actually, I'm not going to bother telling you because I know it's going to take too long to get there, but it's George South and C.W. Anderson. And that's pretty, you know, I mean, there's a bit of profanity in there, but he was like, that's pretty insane. And I was like, that is insane. I mean, you know, that's the sort of stuff which I was talking about where, like, you know, the US and UK, like, there's so many differences there that, like, you know, AML just seen us somewhere, I don't know from what footage or where they seen us, but they seen us and they decided to put us in there against people like George South and C.W. Anderson. And that's something that, you know, it might not mean anything to them. They might just think, you know, just, you know, get these 2 on. But it's something that will stick with me and Toby for the rest of our lives, especially with, you know, being able to meet with George South and C.W. Anderson afterwards. You know, it's something which I'll never forget.
Yeah, and tell us a bit. I mean, like I say, you were wrestling in front of some fairly large crowds. 800 at Coalfields, the school there that you wrestled in. 1,000 against George South and C.W. Anderson. How did the fans kind of react to you guys? I'm guessing that, you know, you'd be brand new on their wrestling radar when you step through them curtains. And I'm guessing that the promoters are quite high on you and your opponents are quite interested in what you're all about. But how did the fans kind of react to the 2 of you when you came through the curtain?
I mean, I'll be honest, I kind of thought that we weren't going to be treat us well, or the fans weren't going to like us because they know that we're not American. That's kind of the way that I've seen things. Just I mean, you see William Regal on WWF or WWE back in the day, sorry, and that he's getting booed. I mean, it's quite hard to cheer him, or the crowd think it's hard to cheer him. So I was kind of expecting that sort of reaction. But I mean, honestly, me and Toby, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I feel like we couldn't get booed, or anything we tried to do when we weren't a big fan of the crowd, it was hard. There was stuff that we were trying to do to get them to hate us, and they just weren't. they couldn't. It was one of those things where it felt weird. You do some of the stuff that we were doing in the US, you do that in the UK, they're gonna hate us. But over there, I don't know what it was. They were fans of the Blockbusters in some respect. I don't know what it was, but they seemed to dig us. So
I would see, two good-looking boys coming through the curtain, and you're very athletic for your respective sizes. So there's a lot to like there, I'm sure. There's a lot to like. But I mean, are they as loud as the UK fans? I mean, I've only really got experience of UK indie wrestling. I have seen, WWE over in the States and NXT over WrestleMania weekend. But what are the indie fans like? Can they get noisy? Obviously, there's not the songs and the chants that you'd find at a UK audience, but how vocal can they get?
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the venues or the way that it's set up at the shows, but man, there's some really, really loud crowds there. And this is in I'm not talking about just silent, I'm talking about in intimate settings too. There's some crowds which they do not stop making noise. It's just constant. Sorry, what you said about looks. Me and Toby, this is something that I just want to bring up because this was something that I found weird when we went over there. We went over there, and me and Toby, a lot of the times, people either thought that we were related, or they thought that we looked too similar, or we looked similar. And
Right.
I'm going to be honest, Toby's got better hair. He's got
great hair. He has got great hair. Very jealous.
He's got great hair. You can't knock the hair on the guy, but 25 pounds of muscle on me. I mean, dude's 2 inches taller than me. I mean, when I'm in my boots, I'm 6 foot, so he's 2 inches taller than me. So I just didn't really understand what it was. There was times when, again, when I hit the backdrop, I remember I was backstage, and they're like, "Yeah, when Toby hit that backdrop on AJ," and I was like, "That was me." And he's like, "What was it?" He's like, "I can't really tell. You guys wear the same gear." I'm like, "Yeah, we do not look different." I don't get that. So, when we're over there, we go by cousins. That's how we, that's how we like to, just mess around.
Brilliant. And I'm just going to bring up a couple of pictures again, and just the size of the crowd was, like I say, fantastic. That was the one where there was 800. And sorry, Toby, I'm showing that choke slam again. How you got up that high, I will never know. But the next picture I'm going to bring up is kind of one that I'm sure that will kind of live with you forever, and a really, really proud moment of your time over there. And that was your 2 or 3 days supporting and helping out at the NWA shows. And I think that you were present and witnessed and watched the 75th anniversary weekend and the NWA Power tapings that followed the day after. When did you find out that you were going to be kind of at the pay-per-view, at the tapings, helping out? And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you even worked a dark match.
Yes, that is correct, and
crazy opportunities.
I know, but believe me, I couldn't believe it either. But it was something that it was we decided, all 4 of us, that we got to, while we're over here, we got to go to the NWA, because that's something that is, that's a big deal, and we're in Tennessee, so that's kind of, we're kind of near enough in the wheelhouse for NWA territory, and thankfully, because of how gracious Dr. Tom is, he said, "Yeah, come along, help out." We just had to make sure that we had to let them know that we're part of Dr. Tom's JPWA, so it's all good. But we get there, and my God, it's just like you look around the corner and there's someone you recognize. You know, it's surreal. You know, being there and helping out, just helping out alone is surreal. Just because you're a part of something. You know, you're a part of something that you know you're going to be seeing, whether it's on YouTube with tens of thousands of views, and you know, running into people backstage like, you know, Tom Latimer and Chris Masters. You know, there's so many people there that you've either seen in the past, and you know, so on and so forth. But we didn't know that we were going to be helping out. Not helping out. Sorry, we didn't know we were going to be in a dark match or anything like that until the second day of the tapings. That's when we found out. We had no idea. We helped out the first day. Helped out the first day, and we came not appropriately dressed, as they like to say. You know, we came looking like we just walked off the beach, I suppose. You know, I think I had this vest on, actually, this Los Post Hermanos tee vest on, and I had the shorts. You know, I was looking comfy. Came out the next day, dressed out in black, serious, you know, black shirt, black trousers. And then we just get told, you know, there that, you know, they'd like to have us on a match. And it was something that, you know, again, I got chills just thinking about it. It was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences of my time, because, you know, it might be a dark match, but at the same time, it's for a big company. You know, it's a big opportunity. It's something that, you know, isn't often replicated, or isn't something that you can just, you know, get by just doing it. You got to be there in the right place at the right time, in my opinion. You know,
absolutely. In front of a lot of very experienced eyes, some of the, you know, most well-renowned, I mean, Billy Corgan, like I say, excellent promoter, NWA, 75 years, one of the most celebrated wrestling promotions in the history of the sport. And like I say, some of the top names that would have been backstage or performing in front of the camera, and you got your opportunity to shine. So that's really, really cool. A bit of a dream scenario. Would I be right in thinking that you are a bit of a NWA fan, or maybe a bit of an old school fan, and it kind of really resonated with you being there and being part of that experience?
Again, like the old school style, you know, the 80s, you know, that's the sort of style which I wouldn't say I grew up on. It's something that I started to grow a love for as I got more and more entrenched in wrestling, and, you know, watching them, just the matches they had. It was just, you know, there was, I don't know, almost like a style of like authenticity to it that you just couldn't take away from, or you couldn't find anywhere else, you know. And I mean, myself, I'm a big fan, but I know Toby especially was, you know, ecstatic, you know, over the moon. You know, that's a big dream of his. And, you know, the fact that I got to be a part of that, and the fact that I got to be able to, you know, tick my own boxes, tick my own bucket list, you know, that's something that,
Look at that.
you know, can only happen in America. 3 months
Absolutely.
in America, you know, that's the perfect time to go. There was no other time that we could have gone, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I might be skipping ahead a little bit here, but the 16th of September, there was a lot going on. And of course, you had a SPCW and their show, of course. And you will have had this match here against the Heat Seekers. And of course, it was graduation time as well, on the same show, the same day. And there you are. That particular class graduating with Dr. Tom. There's yourself there, just kneeling down on the left-hand side of the picture. But what a fantastic day, another really memorable day. And like I say, capping it off with that graduation. And you must be very proud to have said that you kind of, you went through the whole process and, yeah, like I say, graduated. Tell us a bit about that day and that whole experience.
I mean, you know, the whole day, I mean, it was a huge deal. You know, I kind of felt like there was no show out there which wasn't a huge deal. Like, and I think that for most, I say that for all shows, actually. There's no show which I don't take seriously. But there was some shows like this one, especially like the graduation show. It's something that, like, that was something that I truly made sure that I had to make sure that it was something special. You know, it was, you know, something that I had to make sure that I tie my shoes extra tight. You know, I made sure that you know, everything was in place. And I mean, wrestling the Heat Seekers, they're a world-renowned team. I mean, they've been to Japan, they've, you know, been to NWA, they've been everywhere pretty much. So the fact that they thought that me and Toby on our, you know, graduation day was worthy of a match like that with the Heat Seekers, you know, I'm forever grateful that they thought that would be, you know, the perfect match, because in my opinion it was a perfect match. You know, that was, I try hard to not rank my matches, but that match was one of my favorites. It was one of my favorites for the whole time for being out there.
But unfortunately, no Glenn Jacobs. I understand that he wasn't out there. You did get a chance to meet Mr. Jacobs during your time out there, but he unfortunately wasn't able to make your graduation.
Yeah, you know, he's busy.
Things happen.
Yeah, he's busy.
He's a busy man.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a lot on his plate. So, I mean, just being able to meet him and just ask him a couple of questions, you know, anything that we had that was burning, you know, it was basically, he was there for like a good, you know, hour or two, just making sure he's answering any questions. You know, the main thing that I would take away is, obviously, I appreciate that he asked the questions, but he was tall, man. He was tall. He was a big dude.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, even now when you think that he's retired, he's still a huge man. So, you know, that was surreal to meet someone who, you know, I mean, during my time of watching, I was a big fan from like the 2003 time in WWE up until, you know, maybe like 2007, 2008. That was like my perfect time of watching wrestling when I was younger. So just to be able to meet someone like that who was prominent on, you know, the television at the time, you know, that was a big deal for me.
Absolutely. And I'm sure during your career you've had a lot of kind of light bulb moments where things just kind of clicked and made sense. Did you have any specific kind of, dare I say it, light bulb moments during your time with Dr. Tom that kind of just something made sense that hadn't made sense for however many years, and things just clicked? Any specific learning moments or memories or light bulb moments that you can recall?
Trying to think, not so much light bulb moments, but there's a lot of quotes from Dr. Tom that can be applied. You know, he says that he likes strawberries, but when he goes fishing, he puts worms on the hook because fish don't like strawberries, they like worms. You know, stuff like that where, you know, it might not mean a lot to some people, but it means, you know, a lot to us, because we can take that very literally and place that any way we want, you know, to make sense of it. But it's stuff like that he would say, which would really resonate with us, especially when, you know, he always likes to start off with, "It's just my opinion," which usually means listen to what he's got to say, in my opinion, because, you know, his opinion, you know, it can be gospel, you know, especially with, you know, stuff that he's done. So just stuff that he says like that, and little tidbits that he tells us, you know, it's stuff that you can apply to, you know, situations in wrestling, which, you know, you go, oh yeah, that makes sense.
And answer this as best you can, but are we getting a kind of a different, new and improved, souped up Jordan Sparks now that you're back over here on UK soil?
You know, I'm not sure. You know, you're gonna have to wait and see until we get to these shows, because, you know, before I went, I was kind of sowing the seeds. But, you know, the main thing about America is it's character building, and that's 12 weeks of building and building and building and building. So I'd make sure to come to any shows that you see me on if you're interested in what it is I'm doing next and what I could turn up as. That's what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we have had a certain Toby Johns. He's watching us via YouTube. Now, he does bring up a question about the Blockbusters. We will bring that up in a short while, because I do have a whole list of questions about the Blockbusters. So, Toby, stay where you are, and we'll get the answer very, very soon. Okay, we've got a question from Megan Harlin, who is a ASW South trainee, and Megan has sent us a question. She's watching us live via YouTube. Would you ever come and train at ASW South in the future? Now, you were there at their open day, weren't you? That Joel Redmond put together back in, I think that was maybe April or May, and I was there kind of filming the day, and that was a really, really fun open day. Any thoughts on possibly going back to ASW South, having a training session or two there?
Absolutely. I thought about it. It's something that, you know, with the times of the training and stuff like that, and where we're based at the moment, that's obviously a big factor. But it's definitely somewhere that I've always considered looking into, especially when you see the boys that are coming out of there. You know, you got Nathan Angel, Brandon Lee, Scott Jones, Dolly Blake. They've got a plethora of talent coming out of there, and I've seen the shows on YouTube. I mean, like, you know, their shows are starting to pile up now, and they're looking good. You know, the matches I've seen. So absolutely, All Star South is somewhere which, you know, I'd love to go in the future. I mean, who better to learn from than Joel? You know, one of the best in the country, by all means.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Megan, for reaching out. Keep sending your questions in. We've got plenty of time. Toby Johns, whoever that is, keep sending your questions in as well. I will get to your first question very, very soon. But I think we had a brief discussion before we went live, and I think you started your training as a pro wrestler about, was it 2020 or 2019? Going back to like your wrestling fandom and what inspired you to want to become a pro wrestler, take us all the way back now to kind of what kind of caught your attention as a fan and how that eventually led to you wanting to start training as a pro yourself.
God, I mean, I don't know how old I was, but all I recall was my brother was a big fan. So I naturally gravitated towards that. Obviously, you had the game, stuff like that. You know, SmackDown 2, that was a big one for me because, again, my brother was old school. And then I had these 2 videos, and the 2 videos were Royal Rumble 2003 and No Way Out 2003. And those were my go-to. It would be I go to first school, I get back from first school, and I play those 2 back to back. There'd be no, you know, other way. I might have got some DVDs along the way, like Royal Rumble 06, Survivor Series, Elimination Chamber, but those were my go-to, and they still are my go-to pay-per-views now. So that was probably the start of my fandom. There was a couple points which I'd say really tipped the scale. I seen NXT Live in Plymouth in 2016 on June 17th on my birthday. That was a really big deal to me. It was something I wasn't expecting. You know, I told my dad, get me some WWE tickets. He doesn't know the difference between them all, so I'm not expecting anything great. And we turn up, and I'm going, oh, well, you know, we're in Plymouth, so I know that there's NXT running here, and that's like, at the time, 2016, that was, for my opinion, golden era of NXT. That was perfect.
Agreed.
I just heard that Bobby Roode had been released from TNA. I was a huge Bobby Roode fan. I thought it would be crazy if he turned up, but he won't. They've only just announced it. He turns up. You know, I'm losing my mind. And, Brilliant. You know, that was just being sat in there and just feeling the crowd. I hadn't really gone to live shows. I think that was my first ever live show. I just watched it from home. I didn't actually turn up to these shows. But seeing that was like a point where I was like, okay, you know, I'd like to at least give this a go, you know. And then not too long after that, I think I went to a Strike show in Bournemouth in Halo. And that was the first time that I'd ever seen Eddie Ryan, Nick Riley, and it was at the Great British Strike Off. That was what the show was called. I was there to see one of my mates from Swanage. He was actually a wrestler, Stacey Chambers. But that's where I got my first taste of just, you know, British independent wrestling. And since then, I think that's probably a point where I kind of look back on it and I think, yeah, that was probably it. So go to uni, make sure there's a training school near the uni, and then there you go. That's the rest is history.
Yeah, and feel free to correct me on any of these questions, but I think you made your pro wrestling debut after COVID, just as the doors were reopening, about July 2021. Over the course of, say, the rest of 2021 into 2022, you're obviously finding your feet. Would you agree, you know, that it was quite a big learning curve for you, and that you weren't quite understanding the business, but you were kind of trying to make sense of it? You were working hard, but still a very big learning curve for you that first year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes a while to have things click for you to really understand things, not just like in the wrestling ring, but just in general. So that is, you know, kind of for a lot of it, I feel like I've made, like, that time was a you know, a maturity thing. I feel like I had to mature first, just in everything. I mean, you know, outside of the ring, with training, you know, gym conditioning, that sort of stuff, as well as, you know, inside the ring. I was just trying to find my feet, you know, and I mean, you know, realistically, between then and now, it's, you know, it's crazy to think, in my opinion, how much of a difference it is. But yeah, it's something that it's hard to pinpoint when exactly it was that you find or start to gather pieces together for you to understand what's really going on.
Yeah.
But it took a while for me to really figure that out, in my opinion.
Yeah. And through my research, I noticed that you really started to work quite a few dates for LDN, really getting the reps in with those. And it also appears to be the place where you kind of started to work with and mostly against a certain Toby Valentine or Toby St. John. And your kind of career started to intertwine with one another from then, really. But from like mid 2022 onwards, you seem to be kind of off to the races, finding your feet a bit more, getting the reps under your belt, and starting to have some good matches as well.
But I say Toby Valentine, I was like, who's that? Toby Valentine.
Yeah,
That
hadn't
don't
seen
ring a
him
bell
for a
to
while,
me.
have we?
I think it could be Toby St. John, you know, I don't really know. But yeah, that was, you know, it was, you know, me and Toby's coming up at the same time, you know. It's like it's like a yin and a yang. You know, there's no smoke without fire, you know, with me and Toby. It's, you know, he's there, I'm there. Well, let's put them together in a match. So that was, you know, I mean, it was just the better part of that year, as you say, finding my feet, which, you know, me and Toby started to really have a lot of matches. And, you know, I mean, just because of the amount of matches you have, you naturally just get to know each other in the ring so well, you know.
Yeah, and that's where your friendship and your eventual partnership started to blossom. We will talk more about Toby very soon. And I might be skipping ahead a little bit here, but I think it's near enough a year to the day, give or take. You had a match with a certain UK wrestling legend, Johnny Kidd. Is that correct? What was that like to step through the ropes with Johnny Kidd, somebody that's been a former guest on the show?
I mean, it was great. I mean, you know, it's one of those again where obviously at this point I'm just finding my feet. I'd probably go as far to say when I was, you know, during that period, I wasn't as not accepting. I wasn't appreciative of British style and world of sport and stuff like that as I once was. I obviously knew who Johnny Kidd was, and but it was the actual like embedding it into my style and embedding it into how I wrestle. I just hadn't done that. You know, I was very linear in terms of, you know, what I'm doing with holds or anything like that. I was more geared towards, you know, I'd probably say more geared towards the actual reactions of the crowd or something like that. That's probably where I more, you know, found my hand in at the time.
Right.
But being in there with someone like Johnny Kidd, it's an experience which you can't really, obviously, again, the pros of being in the US to be in the UK. You know, you're not going to find many better in between the ropes than Johnny Kidd. And, you know, what a wealth of knowledge in another retrospect, because, you know, that whole match, you know, that's a lot of technical wrestling. And, you know, I was getting put in knots because, again, I was very, you know, basic and bare bones. And at the time, I was still trying to find my feet. So that's something which I'll always cherish that moment, because looking back at it, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I'm glad that I had the chance to do so.
Yeah, we've spoken a lot about yourself and Toby St. John teaming together across the states, and like I say, 2023 has been a year where the two of you have teamed together pretty much on a regular basis as nearly like a full-time tag team. But I think you first teamed together maybe about November last year. Now let me just get my notes up here. I need to make sure that I quote this properly. The pretty sexy things, is that right?
The Pretty Sexy Playboys.
Oh, Pretty Sexy Playboys. My apologies. But then it's probably not been since maybe March or April this year when you guys have been tagging more frequently. Going to bring up some pictures here because I think New Wave certainly helped the two of you kind of gel together as a team. The Blockbusters there versus the Iron Hearts. A couple of pictures here. And Josh Holly going for a bit of a ride there. And that's an awesome kind of
the sandwich there, you know.
Absolutely, that's a blockbuster and a half. That is from the Blockbusters. But I mean, New Wave were quite fundamental in getting the two of you kind of teaming together and getting that chemistry going and gelling as a unit, weren't they?
Absolutely, and it's something that obviously me and Toby, because of the amount of times that we've wrestled, so we know each other that well. It was one of those things where it was always going to be natural that me and Toby could, find our way in tag team wrestling. So something like just as simple as, me and Toby just, being thrown together in tags, or a couple of tag team matches before, New Wave and stuff like that. And naturally we thought, we start having fun with it and start having fun, especially as, we like being booed. But, I'll take being cheered. I'm one of those where I realize that I'm probably not going to get cheered. But if I am, it's usually because Toby's telling them to. Toby's trying to get the crowd behind me because, again, we always say that it's kind of like the Rockers. There's always going to be Genetti. But in this situation, I wouldn't put any of us in the same league as Sean. So I'm the Leaf Cassidy to his Genetti. That's the way I look at it, So I would say, New Wave was pretty fundamental in terms of us starting to tag. I mean, it was during that time where, towards the end of the year, we decided that we should probably start training elsewhere because we had mostly just been trained, or training with, say, Eddie Ryan. And it's always good to try, it's always good to try different training schools. It's always good to have different experiences. You've got different coaches that have, different point of views. And I mean, what a great point of view from, Wild Boar to, Brandon, Danny Jones, Nico, Daniel Luna. I mean, how can you not come away with either learning something or adapting something to yourself personally from a session of theirs?
Oh, 100%. And with Brendan White and Danny Jones being tag team specialists, the Greedy Souls, of course, I'm sure that they not only enjoyed putting the two of you together and watching you work, but I think you've actually worked the Greedy Souls before, haven't you? Is that right?
Yes, I have with Joey 7. When that was for CPW. That was, CJS. So me and Joey 7 versus Greedy Souls.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about arguably one of the very best tag teams in the UK, if not further afield, the Kings of the North. I think you actually flew out to Ireland for that match. There's yourself and Toby. Thank you for correcting me, the Pretty Playboys, of course. But tell us a bit about that match because those two, say Bonesaw and Corvin, arguably the best tag team in the UK. What they haven't done isn't worth mentioning. What was that like?
I mean, just what a whirlwind. I mean, the first time we go there to, Hard Knocks, it's Kelly August Lynch. And, that was great. I thought that match, was good. I really enjoyed that match. Me and Toby got the win. We go back the second time and against Kings of the North. Like, that's such a huge step, especially since, I mean, me and Toby at that point, the tag was very much in its infancy. We hadn't quite, we had established the Pretty Sexy Playboys characters, and, we're, flamboyant, over the top, spray balls, rolling the footage, stuff like that. Like, that's stuff that we kind of had and we were starting to experiment with. And then to be put in there with, big dogs, Corvin and Bonesaw. I mean, just madness, especially with how early we were into, our run as a tag team.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring up one more picture, and only because it's a pretty cool picture. But there's yourself and Toby, and I can't remember the name of the wrestler underneath.
Brady Phillips.
Brady Phillips, of course.
What an athlete. What an athlete.
Well, absolutely, and he's running for his life there, not wanting to get caught. I'm sure when I interviewed Toby, he said that there was very nearly a nasty accident on that move, but
Yeah, so
that's a pretty cool picture. What is it about the Blockbusters, Toby St. John and Jordan Sparks, that the chemistry, and obviously this relationship, this chemistry is built between the two of you, but what do you think makes the Blockbusters kind of special and stand out?
It's a throwback, it's a throwback. We feel like tag team wrestling, especially, I mean, when you got Toby on your team, tag team wrestling is so important. And I feel like there's sometimes that tag team wrestling doesn't get appreciated the way that it should. So to, be with someone with Toby who's very much like-minded about tag team wrestling, and how sometimes tag team wrestling can be better than just a singles match, because you got 4 people in there, and you don't know what can happen. That's what makes it so unpredictable. So to have Toby's sort of, his 80s style, his vibe of, NWA, world-class championship wrestling, that sort of stuff, mixed in with, I guess, I wouldn't say that I'm like too new school, but like, I am more geared towards like maybe 90s and noughties, style of tag team wrestling. We kind of, we're very inspired by teams such as the Heavenly Bodies, Rock and Roll, Midnight, and I mean, even when we first started, we were kind of like, oh yeah, we'll make sure that we kind of have a moniker for like, we got to have some sort of moniker that fits. So we're trying to come up with different names, which isn't Pretty Sexy Playboys, because that's something which is clearly very geared towards one side, So the Blockbusters, because, why not? I mean, we could have been the Spine Busters, but, I haven't got that good of a spine buster. I say my Blockbuster's better. So we went with the Blockbusters. We roll the film. We're a throwback. We're nostalgic. And I feel like we do tag team wrestling, or we try and give tag team wrestling the homage that it deserves, is what I'd say about the Blockbusters.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. I think tag team wrestling is the best gimmick match, and when done properly, you can tell so many great stories, so many fun stories, and has the fans on the edge of their seats. But certainly my best type of wrestling for sure. And the Blockbusters, definitely a throwback. And I remember being a fan in the early 90s of the Hollywood Blondes, Stunning Steve Austin, Brian Pillman. They would do that same thing, and there's a bit of a kind of throwback to them as well, in my opinion. But just going to bring up this picture here, and of course, while you're out in the States, the two of you kind of hyped up the shows, you hyped up your forthcoming matches all across Tennessee, with some pretty awesome promos, some group promos, the two of you. Sometimes the scenery, the backdrop that you'd be doing it against would be pretty breathtaking in itself, but the two of you have developed this really good style of promo as a team together.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's something that, 12 weeks been getting told by Dr. Tom when something's good and when something's bad. I mean, it's natural that you're going to pick up some sort of, hopefully people, think that what we're doing is interesting. So, I mean, if we, but yeah, the backdrop and the landscapes out there, it's hard. It's hard to find and film in a place in America, in my opinion, that doesn't look great, or doesn't give off some sort of, character, or doesn't, give something that's eye-catching to the audience. So obviously that's great. That's always, a plus when trying to grab the audience's attention. But yeah, I didn't expect the reaction. I mean, like, for example, like the reel that we put up about graduations coming and stuff like that. I mean, it's, again, because of social media, you're always looking at numbers, you're always looking at how things perform. And I seen that reel, and me and Toby were like, oh, 50 likes. That's, that's kind of what we were hoping for. We got 2 different audiences technically, because we're collaborating on this stuff like that. And then we see that it's starting to get over 100. Now it's like, oh, okay, well, we're doing something right, or people care in some respect. So it's stuff like that makes you think like, oh, okay, so we're going in the right direction, or what we're doing is right in some respect.
Well, absolutely, and even your style of promo as a tag team is very kind of reminiscent to the sort of thing you'd see in the 80s and the 90s. Definitely a throwback, not just in terms of, you know, the look and the way you're inspired and what you do in the ring, but your promos and your promo style as a team is definitely a throwback and something you're probably more akin to seeing maybe over in the US as opposed to the UK. I'm going to bring up that question now from a certain Toby
Yeah,
Johns, is that
Toby
his name?
Jones. Okay.
No profile picture, but who is the Genetti of the Blockbuster? So yeah, I apologise for that. Never like to embarrass my guests, but
This is exactly what I was alluding to earlier. You know, I wouldn't say that it's a case of who's the Genetti, because in this case, none of us can match Shawn Michaels. So my Genetti and Leaf Cassidy, and you know, I got to hand it to him. I'm the Leaf Cassidy. You know, there's, you know, more often than not, you'll find that Toby's the one who's coming in clearing house at the end. You know, so there's first of all, no one that I'd rather have in my corner to, you know, really bring the fire and, you know, haul ass on some opponents. But I'll take the hit and I'll say I'm the Cassidy. I'm the Leaf Cassidy. He's the Mighty Genetti. That's how I'm going to put it. You know, he can take that however he wants, but that's the way.
I like that. And about Eddie Ryan, you saw him at NXT UK when they had the Plymouth tapings, and he's been an important kind of influential person within your career, pretty much from day one, from your early matches onwards, really, both from the same neck of the woods. And of course, he's recently opened the Lions Den Pro down in Plymouth, of course. And I think it probably just opened just before you were heading over to the States. But I think, will that be your kind of new home going forward?
I'd say so. Yeah, it's for example, I mean, again, I've been paying attention to Eddie's work since 2016 because of the fact that I went to that strike show. He was there. That was the first time I technically met him. He wouldn't know. He wouldn't, you know. I wouldn't expect him to know, you know, I mean, however many years ago, he needs a very small, scrawny, you know, student who's thinking about going to university, and, you know, he wouldn't recognize me. But yeah, I'd say that's probably where I'm going to be, you know, applying my trade for now, especially for the near future, just because, I mean, the facilities they offer down there, you know, is second to none. And you got not only have you got Eddie Ryan there, but you've also got Country Big.
Yeah.
And it's really is a shame that I feel like he is very underappreciated. He's not often seen on some of these cards, and I just feel like, especially if you're looking for someone who, you know, the crowd are going to hate, and even if they don't know who he is, he'll make them hate him. You know, he'll make them hate him, because that's just what Josh is. He's a real gem. His Country Big, real gem.
Yeah, saw him have an incredible match against, I think it was Axel Carter at the anniversary show for Southwest Wrestling earlier this year. A phenomenal wrestler. He's got the full package as far as I'm concerned. Let's just have a quick look at my notes here. Now, I've seen you perform and work at a couple of shows this year, probably more than a couple of shows, but one that certainly jumps out was the Spinebuster tapings that happened in Nottingham in May. And you were involved in a few matches. One match in particular kicked off the whole proceedings, kicked off the whole set of tapings against KM Lane. Now, I had KM Lane on the show a few months back, and we spoke about this match. And what a really, really hot start to those tapings. You kind of really set the pace. What do you remember about wrestling KM Lane? Because I think that was probably a first-time encounter. But you two just hit the ground running.
I mean, first of all, when you're right about a hot start, it was warm in that building. It was hot in that building. It was, you know, I was sweating. I was sweating before even going out there. But yeah, I mean, Kane, I hadn't met him before, and it was one of those things where, I mean, just from the off, I mean, just from the in-ring chemistry, I can only see us having another one somewhere soon. Somewhere we ought to, you know, have another one, especially if it was in front of a crowd, you know, because those tapes were great. You know, they gave me some opportunities that I didn't think that could get unless it was just by chance. But man, I mean, that was one of those where I thought, well, first match on, again, there's expectation. I always feel like I always prefer to be first match on. That's where first match or third match just before the interval. Those are my like 2 spots which I feel like I can probably perform my best, because first match you set the pace, you know, and third match, I mean, just before interval was perfect. But yeah, me and Cam Lane, I mean, I feel like he has knowledge beyond his years. I thought he had been doing it for longer. He hadn't, which is pretty crazy to me. I can't remember what specifically he told me that he'd been doing it for, but I think he said like just before COVID or like a year before COVID or something like that.
Similar length of time to yourself, I would say. Similar length of time.
I looked at him as someone who would probably be doing it for, in my opinion, like maybe, 5 years, maybe 6 years, but he told me that knows.
Great athlete, great pro wrestler, and that was a first-time encounter. Like I say, you hit the ground running, really hot start to the tapings. Another match, which I believe is another first-time encounter, is yourself and Toby, the Blockbusters, went up against Sunshine Machine. Now, like I say, arguably one of, if not the very best tag team in the UK, the longest ever progress World Tag Team Champions, TK and Chuck. I spoke to them after your match and they were very, very impressed by the Blockbusters. But take us back to that day, take us back to that match and the Blockbusters versus Sunshine Machine.
I mean, God, Cam Lane, Toby Brad matches in the same day, I mean, then going to Sunshine Machine. It was, a big, big opportunity. So, me and Toby naturally just did everything we could. That was the main thing, is just do everything that we can. Because especially with, where me and Toby have been to watch these guys. I mean, I've been to maybe a couple of progress shows just because of, the distance it takes to go there and stuff like that. But you got them at Chaos as well, Smoking Aces. You see the match they put on with, Charlie and Nikki. Is incredible.
Crazy good
stuff that they can do. Yeah, crazy. I mean, I still hold true that, at the King's Oak, I've seen them have matches between Smoking Aces and Sunshine Machine, which I think, I don't think I can see a match like that ever again. And they go out and they do another match which you think exactly the same of. So it was a really big deal to me and Toby to make sure that we don't leave no stone unturned. We had to make sure that everything we did, we wanted to make sure that they know exactly who we are and why we're here.
Oh, 100%. But it was a long, hot day in Nottingham that day. But so much fun. And I think that same month, you had this match here at WrestleVersary 3 for Southwest Wrestling against Nathan Angel. Now, I think for anybody watching that live, and certainly for myself and the talent that were watching it, I think we felt in the Exmouth Pavilion that we were kind of watching 2 stars for the future, 2 kind of big stars on the UK wrestling scene for the future. And you 2 went out there and put on a fantastic show. I think it was probably match 2 or 3 on the card. But what are your recollections of that match and Nathan Angel in particular? Like I say, the 2 of you in there, I felt that you really demonstrated what the future of British wrestling is going to look like over the next 5 or 10 years.
I mean, Nathan Angel, you can tell, where he's been trained by Joel. He's just, the athleticism is through the roof, and he's so young, and he's already done so much. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen the other day however many matches he's had, and it's something that I've never hit in a year, not yet at least.
He's racking him up. He is racking him up.
Yeah, he is, and it shows. It shows the amount of matches he's had. It shows when he's in the ring. He's a true professional, and he's another one who I'd love to have another one with, somewhere soon. Just because, so much time's passed between then and now that who knows? Hopefully, we'd have an even better one if if you guys thought that it was great. Maybe we could have another one somewhere soon, and I'd like that because I feel like we meshed well that day.
Yeah, Absolutely, and like I say, it was evident just watching it that you're watching two of the future stars of British wrestling for sure. I'm going to bring up this picture here now. I think I got this from your Instagram, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is obviously there's been a big kind of transformation in your physique, and like I say, gone from 78 kilos to 98 kilos. So you're about 220 pounds, about 16 stone in the space of 3 years. And a lot of hard work has gone into that, and in a relatively short space of time. And I think your physique that you have now definitely suits you, definitely suits your style. But tell us a bit about that journey.
So, especially from, you know, when I was younger, I always kind of gravitated more towards, like, for example, if we're using Royal Rumble 03 as an example and No Way Out 03, I mean, I loved, one of my favorite rivalries of all time is Scott Steiner versus Triple H. I think everything they did, from the pose down to the push-up contest to the arm wrestling contest, you know, and that's really all old school stuff. That's like stuff that you could find in like the 80s, you know, that obviously Triple H took and he made it his own with Scott. But like, I don't know, like I always had a passion, obviously from like a young age, for that sort of bodybuilding stuff, and it didn't show when I first, you know, started getting into wrestling. But that's because, I mean, I think 2019 was the first time I kind of started going to the gym on a regular basis. So obviously it's going to take time for the muscle to mature and stuff like that. So wrestling was kind of it was something that kind of made that process, you know, something that was embedded in me. I always had to go to the gym. And at first, obviously, it was real tough in terms of gaining weight, gaining good weight, especially. But eventually, you know, you start looking towards, you know, what I need to do to get there, you know, how many calories I need to eat, you know, and you've got, you know, such great people giving out fitness advice. I think my first plan was with, I got from Yeston Rees. So obviously I couldn't go wrong there. I'm just on a new plan now with Dan Bryden. He's a professional wrestler. He's just done very well in his bodybuilding comps. So, you know, I'm always, even now, where I am now, also I look back, if I ever feel like as if I'm lacking motivation or anything like that. But even now, I always feel like I could always, you know, I always feel like I could look better. That's all I feel. But like in a good way, you know, it's a good motivator. It's something that, you know, I don't hate myself or anything like that. It's just something which I've grown a passion for now, especially seeing the body guys in the business. You know, there's always someone who's bigger and better than you. So it's always good to make sure that, you know, I'm keeping on my toes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to bring up that picture one more time. And an awesome physique, fantastic transformation. And I think that's the best version of Jordan Sparks we've ever seen. And speaking of the best version of, absolutely. A nice.
I mean, look at that! Look at that! Look at both of those.
For sure. But like I say, speaking of, you know, the best version of Jordan Sparks we've ever seen, like I say, your promo skills have come on, your wrestling style, like I say, your tag team work with Toby. Tell us a little bit about the character of Jordan Sparks, and certainly who we have in 2023, because I know that you've gone through a few different phases, a few different characters and personalities. Tell us a bit about kind of how that's evolved and who we have nowadays, and your journey as a kind of character or persona within wrestling.
So I'd say that obviously I look towards the technicians in professional wrestling in 2003. You know, you got your Kurt Angles and stuff like that, and I kind of realized that I'll never be Kurt Angle. There's only one Kurt Angle, you know, and, you know, I was a big fan of Chris Jericho, but there's going to be one Chris Jericho. And when I was over in America, I kind of realized that, you know, the style that I've always admired is you know, a real good, just bad guy, like Gorgeous Gino Hernandez. That's probably one of my go-tos, one of my favorites, that I'll go back and watch, and I'll watch his promos, and I'll watch how much the crowd hate him, and it's stuff like that which really makes me feel like that resonates with me. So that's why, obviously, I like to use, you know, the moniker like Gorgeous Jordan Sparks. I like to come out with the hand mirror because I'd rather look at myself than look at the crowd. You know, I've started to develop a better physique compared to back then because I'm self-obsessed. That's all I think about. I look in the mirror 100 times a day. You know, who doesn't? That's what I feel like. So that's sort of who I am. But then at the same time, I kind of mix that with a mesh of an appreciation for technical wrestling that I had when I used to watch back in 2003, and now when I've got an appreciation for, you know, world of sport now. And, you know, that sort of mesh and that sort of hybrid style, I feel like that's something that is perhaps missing in professional wrestling because, you know, I can be able to do technical wrestling, but I got to talk them into the building first. Yeah. That's the way I see it. You got to draw them in first to, you know, make them see what they're missing.
Absolutely. And let's talk a bit about the future now then. Obviously you've come back from the States. You've been, say, plying your craft, now plying your trade for the last couple of years, but I think certainly the last 12 months has been a really good breakout year for you. 2023 has been fantastic for you so far. But where do you see your future, both individually as a solo worker and alongside Toby, one half of the Blockbusters? Very, very exciting future, regardless whether it's solos or tag work. But where would you like to see the two of you or yourself individually within the next 6 to 12 months, maybe?
God, I mean, I hope with 3 months that we spent in America, hopefully there's enough buzz that people want to come see us. So I hope that means that we're going to be all over the UK, you know, so that includes England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, you name it. We want to be everywhere. Obviously, if we could, you know, get some international bookings, we'd love, you know, we're not going to say no to a flight, you know, we're not going to say no to coming out and entertaining fans all over the world.
For sure.
It's, you know, it's something where 6 to 12 months, you know, a lot can happen. And I kind of feel like if there's in some way that me and Toby can show that what we're doing, again, I'm a big believer in, you know, setting goals and, you know, what we're doing works. I mean, tag titles, championships, anything, just to show that what we're doing is heading in the right direction. And what we're doing is what people want to see and what, you know, promotions want to have in their roster. That sort of stuff, I feel like.
Yeah. Great answer. Great answer. And final question goes to a viewer of ours watching us live via YouTube, Rhiannon Brinson. Hey, Ree. And top 5 people that you would like to wrestle and now that you're back in the UK. So a great question. Like I say, I think that you're probably going to be on a lot more people's radars, a lot more promoters' radars, and I think a lot of talent out there are going to want to work with you, going to want to work with the Blockbusters. But any performers, any talent out there, top 5 that might be on your bucket list?
God, I mean, there's so many. I mean, if I had to, again, this is just putting it off the top of my head. So, you know, I mean, Lee Hunter, that's probably one which I've been itching for a while. I feel like Lee's, you know, one of the best in the country. Obviously, Joel, that would be incredible. Yeah. You know, we got Joel, we got Niwa, you know, he's another one. We got Wild Boar. Wild Boar would be incredible. I mean, I can dream of having the intensity that he has, but that's always something that I've, you know, admired is the intensity, you know, that he has. And what I said, I said Lee, I said Wild Boar, Joel, Niwa, one more.
Well, you've mentioned the rematch against Nathan Angel, which would be incredible considering how you've both kind of moved, you know, up the ladder, all this extra experience in the last 5 or 6 months. How about getting in there with Eddie again?
Absolutely. I mean, Ed,
that would be incredible.
We're talking about rematches, then, you know, Eddie, Charlie Rawlins, CJ Rawlins. I'd love to wrestle with CJ again.
Wow, yes, he's all over the place, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's everywhere, you know. Obviously, Nathan, KM Lane, you name it. I'll tell you what.
It's an exciting future, isn't it? It's a really exciting future.
You know, I'll take Toby's exhibition, you know.
Oh, that's really, really exciting. Thank you so much for your question, Rhiannon. Now, just a quick reminder of this is the first interview of the month of October. We are in October, again, ever closer to 5 years of Wrestling with Johners. And just a quick reminder of the rest of my guests for October. Now, I'm going to get rid of the ticker just for the moment. And of course, we've got Jordan Sparks there, 2nd of October. My next interview, just next to Jordan, we've got Johnny LaQuasto. Now, you may not be familiar with the name, but you may be familiar with the voice. He was one of the commentators of WWE 205 Live back in the day. He's also a stand-up comedian, and he's got a show that's coming out soon, possibly Netflix. I could be mistaken, but Johnny's going to be coming onto the show next week to tell us all about that and to have a fond look back with his career with WWE and his wrestling fandom and his journey within professional wrestling. On the 11th of October, I've got Shah Samuels. You talk about fantastic careers, and Shah has done absolutely everything. And then on the 17th of October, JJ Gale will be coming onto the show live into JJ Gale on the 17th of October, 8 p.m. live. You're not going to want to miss that one. The very next day, we've got Mila Smid will be coming onto the show the 18th of October, one of the premier top tier female talents in European wrestling right now. And on the 24th of October, I've got Ivy, who'll be coming onto the show live. She doesn't do many interviews, but we're going to be lucky to have Ivy on the show on the 24th of October. And to cap off the month of October, somebody that Jordan knows very well, Ruby Manitoba, the All-Star, who he was out there with alongside Echo and Toby. Ruby will be coming onto the show the 27th of October. So a stellar lineup, a very, very exciting lineup. And a few people that you're familiar with there. But Shah Samuels, that could be another awesome match between yourself and Shah. And have you ever crossed paths with Shah Samuels before?
No, we were meant to, the four of us, we were meant to go up to a Shah Samuels seminar, but it was just, it was more than what we wanted. Like, we definitely wanted to go there. It was just, things didn't work out the way they did. But, I've seen his work obviously on NXT UK and, elsewhere. And that'd be a great match. I mean, that I'd love to have. It would be a great experience that I'd love.
Absolutely, for sure. But I've thoroughly enjoyed taking a deep dive into you and your career. This has been an absolutely fantastic interview, episode 322 of Wrestling with Johners. But Jordan Sparks, if any of my viewers or listeners out there want to get in touch, want to learn more about yourself, want to see some footage, or just read your posts, or just reach out and say hi, where can they do so on your social media channels, my friend? And we do have all the addresses scrolling along the bottom if it helps, but the floor is yours.
I was about to say, you made it easy for me. You made it so easy. We've got my Instagram, Jordan Sparks PW. We got X, that's at Jordan DE Sparks, and Facebook is at Jordan Sparks PW, just the same as Instagram. But thank you very much for having me on, John. I really appreciate it.
You are more than welcome. So any merch? I know that you do have a t-shirt up on your big cartel, but it seems to be a bit of an old design. Any merch in the works, either for yourself or for the Blockbusters?
So we've got some plans in the works for merchandise. Those old shirts, the pink and black New Age Narcissist tees that I have, they're actually going to go on sale. So if anyone's looking to pick one up, they're going to be £5, dropping down to 15. So, a good clear out post America. If anyone would like to, look into that, my big cartel's linked on my Instagram.
Absolutely. But Jordan Sparks, it's been awesome speaking to you for the last hour and 22 minutes. It's been a fantastic guest, and it's been wonderful talking to you about your trip over to Tennessee and JPWA and your wonderful journey on the UK scene so far. I wish you nothing but the best, both in your solo work and with the Blockbusters with Toby. But thank you so much for being an awesome guest.
Thank you very much, Johners.
You're welcome.